Welcome, everyone. On behalf of the California Local School Wellness Policy Collaborative, I'd like to welcome you to today's session on the Triennial Assessment for Local Education Agencies. I'm Kate McDevitt, District Wellness Supervisor for San Diego Unified School District and a longtime member of the collaborative. The California Local School Wellness Policy Collaborative convenes state leaders from more than 25 organizations working to improve student wellness and academic success. Our collective efforts are to help with areas like this, in helping school communities to take their wellness policies from paper to practice. And we are a catalyst for school communities and stakeholders to implement highly effective local school wellness policies in California. We'll share the link in the chat. So what's on our agenda? Many of the things that you all just mentioned. So first, we're going to share an overview of the triennial assessment, why it's important and how it's used. Then we're going to walk through the components of the new triennial assessment template that was created for California school districts, how to use that template and where to find it. And then we would love to hear a little bit more about where you are in this process, what's your current status and what are your needs moving forward. And finally, we'll share a couple of next steps. Our hope today is that you will take away an understanding of how to complete the triennial assessment, identify the 4 components of the triennial assessment, understand how to use the new template, and then share your current school wellness policy needs with the local school wellness policy collaborative. And with that, I would love to turn it over to Mike Danzik to share the nuts and bolts of the triennial assessment.
Great, thank you, Kate, very much. Welcome, everybody. Good morning. A raining morning in Northern California. It sounds like it might be a sunny morning down in Southern California. So I'm going to take my time today and just kind of give you an overview of the triennial assessment. Excuse me. Next slide, please. Great. So I just want to kind of be able to go over with you today what it is, why it is required, why it is important, and then who in the district should be completing it, how the district should utilize it for their own use, and then also what the state of California will be asking about it. And then finally, the timeline to complete it. And then we'll have a little bit of time, I think, at the end of my session for some questions. And then we also have some general time at the end for questions. And I'm going to back up really quick and just reintroduce myself because I didn't do that. My name is Mike Danzik, and I am a nutrition education consultant with the Department of Education and Nutrition Services. I have good 2 decades of work under my belt in this position, and it's been a great journey. I've been able to be at the ground floor in 2004 when the wellness policy requirements just came into existence. And I was on the ground at that point, training and providing technical assistance to districts then, and I am still doing it now, and it's wonderful, wonderful work. Okay, all right, back to the slides. The what and the why of the local school wellness policy triennial assessment. Excuse me. In a sentence, it is a comprehensive tool to help agencies evaluate their wellness policy. And why is it required? I mentioned a little bit that in 2004 is when the new rule came into being, and then in 2010, Congress passed the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act, and this required the U.S. Department of Agriculture to develop additional rules for each stage of a district's wellness policy. And that includes the development, the implementation, the evaluation, and revision. And the triennial assessment is really the evaluation arm of this process. Why is it important? Well, I think we can all agree that it's kind of difficult to make change unless the changes are measured, evaluated, and analyzed. And the triennial assessment is a means to understand a district's wellness policy and how it was implemented. And this information can then be analyzed to determine next steps for continued improvement of the health of the school environment. And the who. Who at the agency is responsible for completing the triennial assessment? and really who's kind of responsible for the wellness policy overall. Because of the various facets of a wellness policy, it's really designed to be a district-wide responsibility. Every time I speak on wellness policies and we talk about this area, I really emphasize that it's district-wide and not food service. And so I'm hoping that those folks that are out there today in the greater district area recognize that really the various pieces of this cannot all be done by food service. And so it really takes a community, a school community-wide effort to complete it and have it be successful. So there is a requirement, there's one of the policy requirements that there must be someone with oversight authority to ensure that the policy goals and plans are followed through. This person usually isn't the one involved in the day-to-day actions. They could be, but many times they're not. The day-to-day actions really fall to the wellness coordinator, if you're blessed to have someone in your district that's can solely focus on local school wellness, or potentially the wellness committee lead, whoever that may be in your district, as well as the members of your wellness committee. And again, these are your boots on the ground folks, if you will. They are the ones that will develop and share and carry out the implementation plans. They provide wellness policy trainings for staff and parents, or organize them, also for administration. And it is these wellness champions at the district that will ultimately probably complete the wellness policy triennial assessment, share it out with their agency and surrounding community, and then do the follow-up with revising the policy and plans accordingly. The components of the triennial assessment. So let's kind of do some review here. The four components include one, the extent to which the local educational agency's local school wellness policy compares to a model local school wellness policy. Two, a description of the progress made in attaining the goals of the local school wellness policy, more of a narrative. The extent to which schools under the jurisdiction of the local educational agency are in compliance with the wellness policy. And then lastly, the reporting requirement to share the assessment results with the district and surrounding community. How should districts use these results? Really, how do measuring, evaluating, and analyzing these three areas help develop wellness? Well, to go through each of them in a little bit more detail, the comparison of a district's wellness policy to a model policy. The objective to this exercise is really to be able to provide examples of additional strategies or model language that the district may want to integrate into its plans. This may encourage a district to determine other areas of focus or a better way to focus on current policies and strategies. The district can opt to integrate the new information immediately, potentially in their next round of changes, or they can be a part of a longer extended strategic wellness plan. In other words, this comparison allows a district to set a priority list and timeline for future policy or implementation strategies. Next, did the district create realistic goals for itself? What policy changes may need to occur? What implementation strategies may need to change? Is administration, staff, parents, and so forth, are they on board with the current policy goals and implementation strategies? How well did they do to follow and implement the strategies set by the district? Do current goals and strategies align with the newly changing and ever-changing school environment? This allows the wellness committee, the district, and the school board to reevaluate its policy and implementation plans and adjust as necessary. And lastly, how well are the schools complying with the policies and implementation strategies? Similar to the requirement of above, this helps answer if school administration, staff, and school community members are on board with the changes. And it helps to answer, the why or why not. Why are they not on board or why they are on board? And again, this is valuable information to help determine and to adjust your goals as necessary, to adjust your outcomes as necessary. in order to make a more realistic, that are more realistic to a particular school environment. And recall that, the USDA created these requirements in this process because each district has different goals and objectives. They have different sets of resources and other unique needs. So really, I want you to think about the local school wellness policy really as a constantly evolving process and not really a static product. Okay, what are the state's rules? And I'm going to use the word we because I am part of the state of California Nutrition Services. We do play a role in monitoring and enforcement. We do recognize that the primary goal of this assessment is a tool used for districts to successfully support the health and wellness of their students, staff, and overall environment. Our role is to ensure the wellness policy requirements are met through what we call the administrative review, which currently occurs, we're currently on a 6-year cycle, but usually it's about every 3 to 5 years. A district's school food service operation will have an administrative review. And then during that review, we do ask overarching questions regarding the wellness policy, including the triennial assessment. For example, we'll inquire when the triennial assessment was completed, but we will not scrutinize its contents because, again, they are unique and they will going to be different for every district. So my take-home message here is for districts, again, to really focus on using this requirement for their benefit and not for ours, just to be able to check that box that it's been completed. So what will the state ask during the administrative review? So here are the actual questions that the U.S. Department of Agriculture requires us to ask you and for you as a district to answer. So the first one is, please explain how the required elements of the wellness policy are being met. How does the public know about the wellness policy? Who's involved in reviewing and updating the wellness policy, and what is their relationship with either the school food authority of food service and also the local educational agency as a whole? When and how does the review and update of the wellness policy occur? How are potential stakeholders made aware of their ability to participate in the development, review, update, and implementation of the wellness policy? Provide a copy of your most recent assessment on the implementation of the wellness policy. And lastly, how does the public know about the results of the most recent assessment on the wellness policy? So again, as you can see, the state doesn't really ask extremely detailed questions about implementation and progress and so forth. As I stated before, these details are to be utilized by the district to ensure a successful, healthy school environment. Okay, let's talk a little bit about timeline when a district must complete their triennial assessment. So this year, the USDA did allow districts to opt into a waiver, and this waiver extended a triennial assessment completion date from June 30th of 2021 to June 30th of 2022. So agencies that submitted this waiver have until June of 2022 to complete their assessment. Agencies that did not submit a waiver should have had their assessment completed by June of 2021. A couple of things before I get into some of those details. So remember that the assessment does not need to be sent to the state once you've completed it. Again, we will inquire about it at the district's next administrative review. And this could be this year for some, and it may not be a few years for others down the road. So with all of this said, given the current environment and all the issues that have come with the pandemic, we realize and understand that many districts, really regardless of waiver status, have not completed their triennial assessment. And what I say to those agencies is at this point, do your best to bring your wellness committee back together this fall, and then develop a plan for how best to complete it. As much as possible, gathering and analyzing data that is really meaningful and helpful to you and your district for taking the next steps. And if an agency has not completed their assessment at the time of their administrative review, we call it a quote unquote finding, but the consequence really is for the agency to develop a plan for how they're going to complete it and when and by whom. And if you get that process already started before your upcoming administrative review, you will have already shown your reviewer that you're well down that path of completing the assessment.
So we did have a few questions come in, Mike. So one of them was really about trying to understand where the responsibility falls. So there was a question during the administrative review, the local school wellness policy is under the food services department. Is it changed now if there is a district wellness program coordinator instead, who is the person of authority? And then someone else echoed that they had always felt that the policy should be under the board and superintendent.
Right. Okay, great question. So the way that this whole process and this wellness policy requirement has come about is really through the United States Department of Agriculture. They're the ones that have created the rules, or at least Congress has required them to do so. So because of that avenue, the only avenue they have into schools is through the food service department and through the administrative review. So, and I get this question quite often: is why is this a food service review and not a district-wide review? And that's really the purpose, because who's in charge at the federal level is the USDA, and again, their avenue into schools is sort of through the path of food service. So, even though it is all this is measured under the administrative review, it is recognized as a district level issue, because it's also recognized that the food service cannot, there's no way that the food service folks can complete all of everything that's involved. And, if you look at the various requirements for goals, you have physical activity goals, you have other goals that could be other comprehensive health areas, mental health and so forth. And of course, food service are not going to be those subject matter experts. So that's why it's important for district-wide. But again, our avenue to measure and make sure that districts are sort of doing what they're supposed to be doing sort of filters through food service in that regard.
Great. And then there was a question about what are the required elements of the wellness policy? Maybe are there resources that districts can look at to find those requirements?
There are, and Mary Ann will be sharing a lot of that. It's a great segue. And then the California Local School Wellness Policy Collaborative website has a number of resources. I believe we'll share that out, or I think we did share that out already. And then also the California Department of Education has some good web pages on wellness policy and resources as well.
That handles the questions that have come in so far. If I missed it, please feel free to put that in the chat again. And when we get to the end of the next section, we can come back to it.
Great. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Mary Ann Mills. I'm with the CalFresh Healthy Living University of California program, and I'm really excited to be here with you today. It sounds like people are a little unsure about the triennial assessment, and that's totally understandable. We know it's a lot to process, but the California Local School Wellness Policy Collaborative did create a template to help guide you through this process. So hopefully when I go through this today, those sad faces and scared faces will turn into hopefully at least neutral, maybe even happy. So I did just want to start my session by getting a better understanding of where you are and what you know already about the triennial assessment template that we've created. So please complete the poll as it comes up on your screen. The question is, have you had a chance to review the triennial assessment template? And there's no wrong answer here. We're just trying to get a sense of where everyone is. So we'll give you a few seconds to complete that. And the options are, yes, I'm very familiar with the template, I'm somewhat familiar with the template, and no, I have no idea what you're talking about. And again, that's okay. Hopefully by the end of this, you'll be at least somewhat or very familiar with the template. I'll just give it a couple more seconds for folks to answer.
About 70% of participants have participated, so just a little bit longer.
Okay. All right, it looks like it's slowing down. So let's go ahead and end the poll and share the results. Perfect. So it looks like Majority of you are not familiar with it, and again, that's okay. And some of you are somewhat familiar with it and have had a chance to look at it before today's webinar, and some of you are very familiar with it. So thank you for helping us to understand where you are in this process. So just wanted to provide a quick overview of what the Triennial Assessment Template is and its purpose. So we created this to really help guide local educational agencies through the entire Triennial Assessment process from start to finish. And within it, the template includes not just like a blank template for you to complete, but also important information, resources, templates, and also examples to help guide you. And it's comprised of the 4 required components that Mike mentioned in his presentation, and it walks you through each of those 4 components. And so the structure of my presentation will be walking you through each of the components and showing you the resources for each of them. So before you even begin the triennial assessment, we really encourage you to connect with your school wellness policy partners to ensure that they're aware of it. So if you haven't started yet, that's okay. It's a good time to start now. You know, connect with your local partners, make sure they're aware of it, make sure they know what it is and what the requirements are. And if you don't already have one, start working on creating a wellness committee, a district wellness committee. This is really going to help you complete this process. As Mike mentioned, this should not be done alone. It should be done collectively with your key school wellness stakeholders. So create a district wellness committee to kind of assist you with this process. And we really want to emphasize that, yes, this is a requirement, but while you're completing it, think of it more as an opportunity. And so really emphasize the benefits of completing the triennial assessment to your school community. Okay, so as I mentioned, I'm going to walk through each of the components and kind of describe what's included in the template and then show you some example resources that we've provided. So the first component of the triennial assessment template is the comparison to a model local school wellness policy. And the purpose of this is really for districts and LEAs to identify strengths within their written wellness policy, opportunities for improvement, and then really to determine how to strengthen their wellness policy. So really elevating their wellness policy to make it stronger, to really improve the health and well-being of students within their district. And so the template actually provides tools for you to use to complete this component. And we provided comparison tools for common local school wellness policies, including the Alliance for a Healthier Generation, which has some really great language and examples, the WellSat 3.0, which is another great example of a model wellness policy, and then the California School Board Association Board Policy 5030, which I'm sure a lot of you have already used as kind of the foundation for your existing wellness policy. So the template provides an overview of each of the model wellness policies, which includes pros and cons of each to kind of help you determine which model wellness policy you and your partners would like to use. And then, as I mentioned, it also includes comparison tools that's kind of plug and play. So you can add information about your wellness policy, compare it to the language of the model wellness policy, and then kind of analyze that, write your assessment of what you might do with that information. So I'm going to show you these resources. As I mentioned, there are comparison tools for each of the model wellness policies, but I'm just going to show you one today, and I'll show you the Alliance for a Healthier Generation comparison tool. And as a reminder, all of these resources are provided to you on our webpage and also in a downloadable triennial assessment template, which I'll show you at the end of my presentation. So when you open up this document, you'll see the title page kind of provides an overview of what's included, and then instructions for how to complete this comparison. And then within it, it's kind of broken down by different categories of the local school wellness policy, where you can add your school wellness policy language in this section, and then look at, this is the strong model wellness policy language from the Alliance for a Healthier Generation model wellness policy. And then kind of, this is where you can add your comparison, kind of what's your analysis, what are your conclusions, and any next steps. So an example of a next step would be integrating this stronger language into your wellness policy. Okay, and then the next thing that we provide is, essentially, this is something you could use to show during your administrative review that you completed this task, which is the model local school wellness policy comparison results table. It's a relatively simple table. It looks like this. So you'll identify the tool you use, areas of strength, opportunities for improvement, etc. So it's a one-page document, relatively simple to kind of show that you completed this step. And then we also provide a sample. So if you're not really sure what's being asked in the table, you can see here that this is an example of a fully completed component 1 template for you to kind of use as a guide. So again, these are all on our website and all available in the Word document as well. And we'll provide all of those things at the end of my presentation. Okay, so how to complete component 1. I mean, the first thing you really want to do is gather other folks from your wellness committee to complete this together. And we recommend, if you can, kind of divide it up into sections. So if you have nutrition education, you know, people in the room, they can take on that part of the wellness policy. If you have physical activity teachers, PE teachers, they could take on the physical activity piece, etc. So you don't have to do everything together. You can kind of divide and conquer. And then what you're going to want to do is select the model wellness policy you want to use. As I mentioned in the template, we include kind of pros and cons of each, and that should help you and your team, help guide you and your team in selecting the model policy that works best for you. And then you'll complete the comparison using the tools that we provided, or you can complete it without using the tools we provided, but we wanted to make sure you had something that you could use. And then lastly, complete the model local school wellness policy comparison results table. And I did want to note, because we received this question during the last webinar, that you are not required to use this template. This is just something that you can use if you choose to, or if you need a tool. So you can use whichever tools you'd like, but this is just one that's available to you. And then lastly, once you've completed all of that, if you've identified new language to add into your district wellness policy, you would add it in. Okay, so component 2. So this is where you're really looking at the extent of compliance for all schools within the local school wellness policy. And the purpose here is really to determine whether schools are following the wellness policy as it is written and identify where you might be able to provide additional support. So, you know, I think a lot of the time we write these wellness policies and then we kind of put them on the shelf and forget about them. So this is really the piece where we look at, is it actually being implemented? Is it actually being used at the school site level? Okay, so within the template, we provide different methods that you can use to complete this component. So methods of assessment that might work best for you. Again, we're not prescriptive. You can use whatever works best, but we just provide some common methods that you might be able to use. And then we also include links to existing tools that you could use to assess your schools. And then, of course, the extent of compliance template. So again, that's a document that you could use to show during your AR that you completed this component. So I'm just going to show you those resources really fast. So the extent of compliance table looks very similar to that first table, or the comparison table, but where you're really breaking down what's in your written policy, around nutrition ed or nutrition promotion, and then just really how many schools are meeting that requirement that we included in our local school wellness policy and how many are not. And again, the purpose here isn't to punish people that aren't meeting it. It's just to really understand what's happening and how you might be able to move some of those schools that are not implementing into partial compliance or full compliance. And as with the first component, we do have a sample completed table for you to use to, again, kind of guide your work. So you can see here, even in this example, that there are some schools that aren't meeting the requirement, and that's okay. We don't need everyone to be in full compliance. The purpose here is to just understand what's happening and help support people to get to where they need to be. Okay, so how do you complete component 2? Again, you're going to want to do this with a team. It takes a village. So work with your wellness committee to really determine how you want to measure this. And again, we provide different methods in the template. And then you're going to recruit partners at the site level to assist in completing the assessment, because they know what's really happening in their schools. They can help you ensure that you're kind of checking all of those boxes. And then once you've done that at the school site level, bring them back up to the district level, gather all of that information, and compile the results of the template of the assessment. And you can do that by completing that extent of compliance table. And then last, share the results with your wellness committee. I think the purpose here is to really understand what's happening and how we can support people to get to where they need to be. So once you've identified this information, the next step is to bring it back to your wellness committee and identify where you might want to focus your efforts for the rest of the year and moving forward. Okay, so the third component is progress made in reaching local school wellness policy goals. So I did just want to remind you that the final rule encourages local educational agencies to create an action plan around their school wellness policy that includes specific goals. So many folks have already completed an action plan, and this is their opportunity to assess whether they're reaching the goals that they've set forth for their district. So the purpose here is to really document progress and demonstrate that the school wellness policy is being implemented and that you're working towards the goals that you've set. So the template includes links to recommended tools that you can use to complete this component, and of course, a template for you to complete. So I'll show you what that template looks like. It's called the Progress in Reaching Goals template. And it's, again, very similar to the other tables that I've shared. So you'll kind of, whatever you decided is your goals, is your wellness policy, wellness committee, you'll include your goal, talk about whether the goal was met. And again, if it wasn't, that's okay. The purpose here is just to see where you are, and then describe what you did achieve and any documentation to show that you did achieve your goal. Okay. And again, as always, we do have a completed table template for you to use as a guide. So you can see, like, this is pulled from the action plan that the district created, and they're kind of doing an assessment of whether they reached their goals. Okay. So how to complete component 3, you guessed it, start with your your wellness committee. So if you haven't already created an action plan around your local school wellness policy, you can bring your group together and start doing that. There is a sample action plan template in the triennial assessment template as well. So once you've created your action plan with clearly defined goals, you're going to select a tool to assess progress. And the template includes different tools that you can use. But again, you're going to want to use what makes the most sense for your district. Once you've selected your tool, you're going to complete your assessment to see whether you're reaching the goals that you've set forth. And then to show that you've completed this step, you're going to complete the progress in reaching your goals. Okay, the last component. Component 4 is the triennial assessment report to the public. So really the purpose of this is just to ensure that your school community, that your broader community is aware of the important work that you're doing at the school around wellness. And this is also an opportunity to potentially recruit new members. If you're having a hard time recruiting wellness committee members, and I know that's often a challenge, showing what you've accomplished can really motivate people to join and be a part of this important work. And so the template includes examples of methods you can use to share your results with the public. It also provides a report to the public template, as well as a one-page report. And so I'm going to show you those resources. So this is a very simple table, but it really just includes the main information that you would need during your AR. So who is your target audience? Who are you trying to reach with this information? What method did you use? And when did you do it? And I'll show you what it looks like to see a completed example of this. Relatively simple, but it helps kind of guide you if you weren't really sure exactly what's being asked here. And then lastly, there's a one-page report to the public, which is a template that you can use to fill in information to share with your partners. So this is downloadable and modifiable, and you can add whatever information you want here, but it's just kind of a nice template to help guide you in this work. Okay. And how do you complete component 4? Again, work with your wellness committee to really determine your best approach to share the results. And really, as you're doing this, consider who do you want to share the information with and how to best share that information. And then you'll share the results and then complete the report to the public table. Okay, so I know that was a lot, and I know that I spoke really quickly, but I did want to show you exactly where you can find all of these resources. So if you go to the healthyeating.org website, and I think Jerry's going to put that link in the chat for us as well, you'll come to the triennial assessment webpage. So it's very similar to what I just showed you, and I'm not going to go through every part of the page, but I just really wanted to show you what it looks like and let you know that you kind of have two options when you're working on the triennial assessment. You can download the full template, which is a Word document, which kind of guides you through the process and includes those documents that I showed you. I'm just going to open that up really quickly for you all to see what that looks like. Okay, so this is what the Word document looks like. You'll see it's laid out very similarly to the web page, and within it there are links to resources and the resources that I just shared for you. I did notice that someone was asking about the requirements of the final rule of the local school wellness policy. And I did want to point out that there is a table in the document that kind of guides you around the different requirements for local school wellness policy. So you'll want to check out that table. Again, it's in the Word document, but it's also on the website. So the way the website is designed is it's, again, organized by component, and you can click on each component picture to get to the section that you need to get to. And it'll have links to each of the documents that I shared today. So it's up to you if you want to download the full template or kind of use the website as a guide, but they're basically the same thing. Okay, and now if you have any questions, please type them into the chat. I'm assuming you've already been typing questions in. So Kate, if you have,
Yes,
you have some to
we've
share.
had a few questions come in a couple of different areas. So the first question that came in, and Mike, this might be for you, when does the administrative review happen, and how do we know when ours will be?
Okay, a great question. And my response would be check with your food service director. They should know. Hopefully this isn't a food service director asking. So if you do check around and you cannot determine that through your food service department, you can absolutely contact me and I can inform you. We do have, I don't have the link handy, but we have actually a list of upcoming administrative reviews by agency on our website, and so I can gear you towards that, or I can help you find it. And our contact information will be at the end of this webinar today.
Great, thank you. The next question that came in was, what are the duties of the Wellness Committee? And I do believe we've talked a little bit about that, but is there a quick place that someone could look for that information, or a quick summary?
So really, I mean, really, the way that this the way that the wellness policy is designed through the USDA, it's very flexible. And so when you think about the wellness committee, it's really the group that comes together that takes charge of the day-to-day actions, as I think I mentioned earlier, to make sure that things are developed. You know, the wellness policy is developed and it's been vetted and it's been sent to your school board and they've approved it. And so it's all of the small pieces that gets to that healthy, healthy environment. So yeah, it's really, you kind of, the committee kind of runs the show to make sure that it's developed, it's implemented, it's evaluated, it's revised. So that's really the ultimate goal of having that committee put together.
And then this is a related question. How do you form a wellness committee when there doesn't seem to be a lot of interest amongst staff?
Another great question. And I think overall, this is probably one of the more challenging, if you will, pieces to this, because not only, you know, some districts have put together a great wellness committee just to find out that, you know, again, through this pandemic or the following year that, you know, folks find, you know, they drop off, or so it is it's something that it's a constant focus for most districts to maintain this committee. So, you know, picking the low fruit first is really find those advocates who have an interest in health in your district. They would be the first that would probably be more than willing to participate in this exercise. But also, you know, going up to your administration and continuously advocating for wellness policy and the requirements, and having, you know, the district folks help to reach out. Go to where these different audiences gather. Go to PTA meetings. Go to principal meetings, and, you know, go to school board meetings. It's really, this exercise is really something that you have to sort of put yourself out there and continue to highlight, especially the importance of. And it's sometimes very challenging in districts, and especially these days when everybody's wearing very many hats and there's very many, you know, a lot of different competing priorities. But so unfortunately, there's just no one easy answer to get a good group of folks together that are dedicated and interested in the topic and wanting
And I do want to reflect, Mike, that Bailey put from our collaborative, she posted that the California Local School Wellness Policy Collaborative created a committee guide, and that's posted in the chat on how to establish a wellness team. So that might be helpful to some of the school districts as well.
Great.
Great. So the next question is, when the Wellness Council members want teachers to provide more nutrition education in classrooms, how do we move that forward?
Again, these are so wonderful questions, and not very easy to answer. And again, this really comes down to why every district's policy is going to be unique, because every district is in a different place. If you have teachers biting at the bit to receive nutrition education information, whether that be things like dairy councils, nutrition ed programs, or other nutrition ed programs, or maybe even a textbook. If you have that support, then those are easy things to start integrating into the classroom. If you don't, then you just have to sort of evaluate where your district is and start figuring out what nutrition education can happen and where it can happen. It doesn't always have to happen in the classroom. It can happen campus-wide. It can happen through your food service department. And again, it's bringing the culture of your district along to hopefully someday be able to have that full hands-on sequential nutrition education from K through 12. That would be the ultimate goal for really any district. But again, it takes a cultural change, and it just takes a continued effort to bring folks along. So I know these answers aren't totally direct, but it just comes down to where you are in your district and really how far with nutrition ed can you go now, and how far do you want to go in the future and start building that new culture.
Great. There was a question, are there resources to determine the amount of time that will need to be spent on this process? How much time will someone on a wellness committee be expected to work?
Again, great questions to ask, difficult questions to answer. Again, it comes down to, where is the interest, where is the support of your district? I always, say, if you need to, start small. Do some pilots. If you want to make a change, say food rewards in the classroom, start at one school. Start with one classroom. Again, it's all going to depend on sort of what the support and interest is in your district. So the fact that you're moving forward with these changes, whether again it be a one classroom, one school, or one neighborhood, shows that you're progressing forward into the arena that we all want to be in. So.
And then the last two questions, Mike, are both about the wellness policy itself. So one of the questions says, what if our district already has a board policy on general wellness? Do we assess that policy? And then the other question was, we started our policy, we started our wellness policy about 4 to 5 years ago. Can we work off of that, or do we need to start a new wellness policy? So similar.
Right. So either way, it sounds like the first step would be really evaluate that current policy to see if it meets the current requirements of the local school wellness policy. And those requirements were updated by the USDA in 2017. So if there are dates on any of these wellness policies, that will kind of be a good indication of whether they probably are up to speed or not. Again, two very good launching points or foundations to start with. But again, for this exercise, it's really important to ensure that you meet all of the local school wellness policy requirements. And I know that Marianne showed you a link within the template that will show you what those requirements are. And you can always contact myself or any of us through the collaborative, and we can help guide you if you're not sure what those requirements are.
Thanks so much, Mike. Those are a lot of, we gave you some challenging questions, so we have a great audience. So
I know.
All right. So in this final section, we've talked about what the triennial assessment is and what the requirements are. Then we've given you a tool to be able to complete that triennial assessment easily through using our template that was designed for California school districts. And if you joined later in the session, I just wanted to restate that I am the district wellness lead for a school district. So I work in San Diego Unified School District, and I actually work in the nursing and wellness department. So in our district, we really do have broad stakeholder engagement from about 14 different departments and a lot of our community partners. But this has been a process that we have been working on for years. And so if you're at the beginning of this journey, I just want to encourage you. I know you've gotten a lot of information today. Take a deep breath. The nice thing about today's session and for showing up is that you now have a recording and a PowerPoint that walks you through step by step what you can do. So start where you are. And to that end, we want to now kind of understand a little bit better where you are in this process, because the collaborative, again, is state leaders from across the state of California who are trying to help you and trying to help us too. So I just want to move us into a quick poll. All right, so this poll we're going to launch now is, where are you in this process? So the first question is, you can answer any that apply. So check all that apply. My district has updated our wellness policy with the 2017 requirements. My district has established a wellness council or committee. My district has, oops, I think we have a question repeated twice there. My district has completed its first local school wellness policy triennial assessment, or none of the above. None of the above is perfectly okay. If that's where you are, that's where you are. And we're just glad you're here today. The second question is, does your district have a designated wellness coordinator? And here I want to stress, what we're asking is not necessarily the leader that was identified and written into the policy. We're asking here, who's the boots on the ground person? Do you have a boots on the ground person who is going to be involved in helping oversee the implementation and the triennial assessment? Okay, so let's take a look at the results so far. So about 48% of you have updated your wellness policy. Congrats on that. 25% have a wellness council or a committee right now. And I'm going to combine that actually with the one below it. So that's actually a bit higher of a number. And then we have 10% have completed their first triennial assessment. And some of you, none of these things have happened yet. And again, I just want to stress, we're really glad you're here today to get this information. For question 2, 41% of school districts have a designated wellness coordinator, 33 no, and then 26% not sure. Okay, so thanks so much. That's really helpful for us to understand where you are. The next question we want to ask is, what type of additional support or assistance will your district need to successfully complete the local school wellness policy goals, including the triennial assessment? So in the chat, if you could share your answer, and I'll try to read some of those out as we go. Templates. All right, so we're on, hopefully the templates we've been providing today will be helpful. A timeline. The templates are helpful, great. Staffing, so Heather said we're short-staffed. It will be a challenge to have committee meetings, and additional time would be helpful. More examples of what's required besides the policy itself. Jennifer said sanctions or authority. Erica said timelines or templates and extra support. So lots of people talking about the template, so I'm glad that that will be helpful. Marianne covered that today. Susan said support from other departments such as health services, physical education, teachers. Ed mentioned the timeline again. Rebecca, reflecting someone else's comments. Nancy, was there a link posted with the required elements? Yes, that was in the website we shared. Checkpoints, timeline, additional meetings along the way in case we have questions. Okay, great. Thank you so much for that. Support from departments. There's a lack of wanting to be involved. Kristen, the templates. Twyla, and we updated our wellness policy but did not complete an assessment. Will that need to be completed? Yes, that would be part of the triennial assessment. Mickey, templates are great. Contacts that are available to provide assistance. Is there a resource to help get parents more involved? Yes, I would say, I know California Project Lean has a resource for parents in action to help bring parents to the table that I found helpful. Anna, who can we email for questions that come up? I think we'll be posting some contact information at the end. Thanks for that question. Who do districts turn to for support at the county level or the California State Collaborative? Mike, do you want to answer that quickly?
Sure.
So that was, who do districts turn to for support?
So there are some local folks who you can turn to for support, and we did actually have a webinar for what we called technical assistance providers. So look for your dairy council representative, if you're part of UC CalFresh, and I can't remember some of the other ones. Marianne, you might be able to help with that. So that's helpful. Maybe your county office of education has someone that's sort of dedicated to wellness policies. There are some very vibrant county offices of ed who are doing some of that work. And then you can always contact one of us through the collaborative. And as Kate mentioned, our contact information will be available at the end.
Great. Thank you so much. And then there was a suggestion that we offer this training to other departments so that they can understand this is a district-wide project, and a suggestion for a narrative or script for why this is beyond just nutrition services. Great. Okay, so I'm going to move on to our next question. Oops. All right, so we have a Google form. We're sharing the link in the chat right now. And this is if you do have a wellness lead and you want to be able to stay connected with our collaborative so that we can help share best practices and information as it becomes available. If you could click on that link right now and just take a minute to just complete that form. In the form, it's going to ask, do you have a wellness council? Do you have a designated wellness lead? If you don't, you can say no. It's still helpful to submit that form if you'd still like to receive information. So go ahead and again, click that Google form link now that's in the chat, and we'll give you a minute to do that. As you continue to wrap up there, if you've completed your responses in the Google form, our final question here is, what are your next steps? So I know that in any webinar, when you get a lot of information, it can be really helpful to just write down, okay, what is my one next step that I'm going to take? And by writing it down, you're more likely to do it. So in the chat, please share with us, what is your one next step? Nicole said, we have scheduled wellness meeting today. Congrats. Start doing the comparison. Rebecca, great. Download the templates. Thanks, Jennifer. Find out who is there a school wellness committee. Schedule a meeting with my district superintendent. That's a wonderful step, Nancy. Carrie said, create a district wellness committee. Oh, these are great. I mean, I think this shows a really good understanding of where we are in the process. So that's terrific. Look over the assessment examples and identify what I can do and what needs to be done by other team members. Thank you. Patty said, email site admins to put information in their wellness, in their weekly info for parents. That's a great one. Call for a meeting with principal, review templates to determine which assessment fits us best. That's a great step. Adam said, finding out if we have a wellness committee already. Thanks, Adam. Ivy, getting the board policy finalized and approved by the cabinet. I love seeing these next steps. So I want to encourage you, if you haven't written it down on your own paper so you can remember after the session ends, please go ahead and do that. And I think with that, we're going to start wrapping things up.
Thank you, Kate. And just for the sake of time, I did want to provide our contact information. So it sounded like a lot of you wanted to be able to reach out to us individually. So our information is on the slide. And as lots of people have asked, and I just want to make sure the message was received, the PowerPoint and a recording of this webinar will be provided to all of you at the end of this. So we will be emailing that out to folks. So don't stress, you don't need to rush to write this information down. It'll be shared out with you after the call today. And we did just want to encourage you, please complete the evaluation of today's webinar. We really would love to hear your feedback about what you enjoyed, what could be improved for the future, and whether we were really meeting our objectives or not. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us today on behalf of the California Local School Wellness Policy Collaborative. We really appreciate your time, your participation, and we look forward to continuing to connect with you in the future. Have a great one.
Thanks, everybody.